So we were going to talk about the tiara.
Will we?
Yeah.
I thought it said no.
I know, but I just think it would look so fabulous if you
Yeah, but
did.
I've only got little tiny tiaras. They're not really worth it.
The meeting was supposed to settle a routine matter involving several of Diana's most personal jewels. Instead, one carefully chosen question shattered the calm inside the palace. Prince William looked directly at Queen Camilla and asked why her name had appeared in discussions surrounding the trust. Camilla did not explain. She did not defend herself. She rose from her chair, pushed it back across the polished floor, and walked out, leaving William, Charles, and the unanswered question behind. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William had called the review because the Jewelry Trust, an independent arrangement created to protect, lend, restore, display, and transfer pieces associated with Diana, Princess of Wales, had begun receiving unusual requests. The prince wanted to know who could authorize loans, exhibitions, conservation, and transfers. Each precious jewel carried the weight of a mother whose absence had shaped his life. The closed chamber sharpened the danger. Only William, Camilla, King Charles, the trust's legal advisor, and one household official were present. A royal household official is a palace employee who helps manage duties and internal decisions. No relatives had been invited. One sentence could turn a legal review into a family rupture. William spoke carefully, but anger tightened beneath him. He asked Camilla why her office had contacted the trustees seeking a consultative role in decisions involving Diana's jewels. The Queen stared at him and called the discussion deeply inappropriate. Then she stood, pushed the chair away, and left without answering. Her departure struck harder than denial. Charles remained seated. He looked toward the door, then toward his son, yet said nothing. William felt that silence. The king was trapped between defending his wife and admitting that the prince had every right to demand clarity. Hesitation carried its own message. The legal advisor closed the file, though one page remained exposed. It was a memorandum, an official written record, requesting advance notice whenever a jewel linked to Diana was considered for a ceremonial appearance. William pulled it near. A palace reference number appeared at the top. Someone had tried to turn Camilla's request into recognized procedure without his approval. William placed one finger beneath her office's name. Charles watched him, silent. The question had changed. He no longer needed to know only why Camilla wanted influence. He needed to discover who inside the palace had agreed to give it to her. Camilla's footsteps faded beyond the corridor, but the document she left behind was about to draw William into a struggle, rooted not only in jewels but in grief, loyalty, and a wound the family had never truly closed. To the palace, the collection could be measured in diamonds, sapphires, pearls, and historical value. To William, it could not be measured at all. Every piece carried the shadow of a mother, whose absence had shaped his life. Camilla understood the power of those jewels too, but from an entirely different position. For one woman, they represented memory. For the other, they represented a royal legacy she could approach, influence, but never fully escape. William had never viewed Diana's jewels as simple royal property. The trust, a protected arrangement controlling how the pieces could be loaned, restored, displayed, or passed down, stood between his mother's memory and palace pressure. He remembered the occasions when she had worn those sapphires and pearls, moments that became part of her public identity. To him, changing how those pieces were handled meant changing how her story would survive. Camilla carried another burden. As queen, she helped coordinate major appearances, state occasions, and ceremonial jewelry, meaning the historic pieces worn to represent the crown at formal events. Her office believed it needed advance knowledge whenever an important jewel was chosen. Without that information, conflicting decisions could embarrass the monarchy. Yet whenever Diana's name entered the discussion, the queen consort knew her motives would be judged through the past. William remembered standing with Catherine years earlier as they discussed which pieces should remain private and which could return to public life. Catherine had asked whether wearing them might reopen painful memories. The prince had answered that silence could erase Diana just as easily as exploitation could distort her. He promised his wife that every decision would protect his mother's dignity, never use her image for advantage. Camilla sat alone after leaving the meeting. She removed her glasses, pressed her fingers against her forehead, and fought the humiliation of being questioned before advisors. The Queen felt that even standing near Diana's legacy was treated as an offense. She had not requested ownership. Her office had asked for consultative visibility, advance access to plans, influence over scheduling, and the ability to raise concerns before public appearances. William heard danger inside those careful words. Consultation could become expectation. Expectation could become authority. Once Camilla's presence was accepted as normal, objections from her office might begin shaping which jewels Catherine wore, when they appeared, and how Diana's memory was presented. Charles entered Camilla's sitting room and found her still holding the papers. She asked whether he believed she had tried to take something from Diana. The king hesitated. That pause wounded her more than an accusation. Camilla placed her royal engagement diary on the table and pointed to 3 unresolved state events. Her hand trembled as she closed it. Charles finally understood that someone had encouraged her to believe a formal role was possible. Before William's question, the palace could dismiss the tension as a misunderstanding. After Camilla's walkout, every private grievance had acquired a document, a witness, and a dangerous new sense of purpose. The confrontation had not begun in the meeting room. Its true origin lay months earlier, during a state reception when one of Diana's most recognizable jewels was prepared for Catherine. A last-minute instruction arrived from Camilla's office. The jewel was delayed. Catherine waited. William demanded an explanation. By the time the piece finally appeared, the guests had seen nothing unusual but behind closed doors. A boundary had been crossed that William would never forget. Catherine had been preparing for the Commonwealth Winter Reception, a formal diplomatic gathering bringing together representatives from nations linked through the Commonwealth. Weeks earlier, the Jewelry Trust had approved a sapphire and diamond suite associated with Diana. The pieces had been inspected, secured, and cleared for use. Nothing remained uncertain. Yet shortly before Catherine was due to dress, the custodian received a message ordering the transfer to pause. The message came from Camilla's deputy. It demanded a fresh review until the Queen's office could confirm that the jewelry would not create conflicting royal symbolism. Catherine stood waiting, while the approved suite remained locked inside its case. William read the instruction once. Then again, his anger rising with every carefully chosen word. Catherine tried to calm him. She said another piece could be selected, and the evening could continue without embarrassment. William refused. The prince knew the argument was not about clothing or decoration. The trust had already granted legal approval, and allowing palace protocol to override that decision would create a dangerous precedent. Someone was testing whether Diana's legacy could be controlled through procedure. Camilla later spoke to William in a documented private conversation, recorded by a senior aide. The Queen insisted she had never ordered the jewel withheld. She said her office had only questioned whether its appearance might overshadow the diplomatic purpose of the reception. William listened, but he believed her staff understood exactly how such a request would be treated. The pressure broke when a palace aide admitted that the pause ended only after the trust solicitor intervened. A solicitor is a legal advisor responsible for protecting the trust's rules and authority. He warned that any further delay would be formally recorded as unauthorized obstruction. Minutes later, the jewel was released. Catherine entered the reception without showing any sign of the struggle behind her. William remained controlled beside her, but the calm was deceptive. Later, he discovered that Camilla's deputy had been told she would soon receive a consultative position. No appointment existed. Still, that expectation was already shaping decisions. William returned to Catherine's rooms after the reception and found the jewelry case resting unopened on a table. He placed his hand on the lid, then asked the custodian for every message connected to the delay. Catherine watched his expression harden. She understood that he would no longer absorb the insult for the sake of peace. The reception had ended beneath smiles and formal applause, but William carried one certainty away from it. Somebody had tried to create power first and ask permission later, and now he was ready to confront them face to face. The second confrontation happened without lawyers, secretaries, or carefully prepared language. William found Camilla in a smaller palace drawing room, less than an hour after she abandoned the trust meeting. The Queen stood beside a window, still holding the notes she had carried out. He closed the door behind him and asked the question she had refused to answer. What exactly had she expected to control? This time, walking away would not prevent the truth from entering the room. William had chosen privacy before the palace could turn the dispute into a battle between competing offices. A royal office is the team of advisors and staff who manage a senior family member's duties and decisions. He wanted Camilla's answer. not another carefully drafted memorandum that could hide intention behind formal language. Camilla had already spoken briefly with Charles, but she had not contacted her advisors. The Queen Consort understood the danger. Whatever she said now would belong to her alone. No secretary could soften it. No official could later claim confusion. William told her the delay at the Commonwealth winter reception had made Catherine feel that wearing Diana's jewelry required Camilla's permission. His voice remained steady, but the hurt beneath it was unmistakable. The prince said the trust had approved the loan, yet one message from her office had been enough to stop everything. Camilla's restraint broke. She said she had spent years being blamed for Diana's unhappiness and would not accept being treated like a thief whenever her staff performed ceremonial duties. The queen's anger rose sharply, then weakened into exhaustion. She had fought for legitimacy for decades, and now one request had dragged her back into the same old judgment. William placed the memorandum on a side table between them. He asked, "Did you want to be informed, or did you want the right to stop us?" Camilla lowered her eyes, folded her notes once, and answered that she wanted the right to prevent the monarchy from being manipulated through memory. The words stunned him. William realized she believed Diana's jewels were sometimes being used to strengthen his and Catherine's emotional authority whenever the crown appeared vulnerable. To Camilla, the collection was not only memory, it was power. Camilla admitted she had approved a request for advance consultation, meaning her office would be informed before decisions became final. She denied ordering the reception delay. Then she disclosed that a senior household official had expanded her request into a proposed role far greater than she had sought. William asked whether she had ever considered how it would feel for him to see his mother's legacy placed under her review. Camilla turned away. For once, the Queen had no defense. William closed the memorandum inside the trust file. Before he left, Camilla gave him the official's name. The man reported directly to Charles. The argument had exposed Camilla's fear and William's grief, but the deepest betrayal now pointed elsewhere, toward the machinery surrounding the king and the authority exercised in his silence. Power inside a palace rarely arrives with a dramatic proclamation. It travels through annotations, copied correspondence, private assurances, and signatures placed where few people will ever see them. When William traced the proposed role back through the household, he discovered that Camilla's request had not expanded by accident. A senior official had transformed consultation into potential authority, and had done so after receiving a quiet indication that the king would not stand in the way. Sir Malcolm Harrow sat at the center of that machinery. As deputy keeper of the royal household, a senior official responsible for preventing conflict between royal offices and independent family trusts, he was expected to protect balance. Instead, he had begun reshaping it. Harrow believed one central ceremonial authority should guide every major jewelry decision. To him, separate trusts risked sending rival messages during state occasions. Charles read Harrow's briefing paper alone. The king reached the passage granting Camilla the right to request reconsideration of any loan involving Diana's collection, then stopped. He finished the page, placed the document down, and remained silent for several minutes. The monarch understood the danger. What had begun as coordination now carried the shape of control. William entered with the file already open. The prince asked whether his father had approved the proposal. Charles answered that he had permitted Harrow to explore coordination, not authority. William did not accept the distinction. He told the king that vague royal permission becomes real power when officials are eager to interpret it broadly. Charles felt the accusation cut in two directions. Defending Camilla seemed to diminish Diana's legacy. Protecting the trust appeared to confirm that the queen could not be trusted near it. The king had spent years trying to hold those worlds together, yet every attempt at balance now looked like avoidance. Harrow was summoned and questioned in a recorded palace interview. He admitted that Charles had never signed final authorization. Then he produced a handwritten note from the monarch. "Please find a workable role for C." The official explained that those words had been enough for him to begin drafting the arrangement. William slid the note across the desk. Charles recognized his handwriting, removed his glasses, and closed his eyes. The king finally saw how far one loose instruction had traveled. The trust solicitor then delivered the harshest warning. A solicitor is the legal advisor responsible for protecting the trust's rules. He explained that repeated ceremonial reviews could have delayed loans indefinitely, even without giving Camilla a formal veto. Charles ordered the proposed role suspended and demanded every related document. Harrow surrendered the files. Yet the king stopped short of issuing a permanent ban, still hoping to protect Camilla's dignity. That hesitation escaped the room. Within hours, the Queen's office began preparing its defense. Charles had stopped the machinery, but he had not destroyed it. In the hours that followed, every side began collecting records, choosing loyalties, and preparing for the possibility that family pain was about to become a palace crisis. By the following morning, the palace had changed. Meetings were cancelled without explanation. Jewelry schedules were removed from shared circulation. Advisors who had once exchanged routine messages now communicated through legal representatives. Camilla returned to her desk and discovered that her office no longer received notices concerning Diana's trust. William had not made a public accusation, but the withdrawal of access delivered a message more severe than any headline. The Queen was no longer trusted inside the process. Camilla read the access notice twice before placing it face down. The trustees had restricted all correspondence to William, Catherine, the legal custodian, and the conservation team responsible for protecting and restoring the collection. Her ceremonial office, the staff managing jewelry choices for major royal appearances, could still request details about pieces already approved for joint state events. It would receive nothing about private discussions, future loans, or early decisions. The restriction remained private, yet humiliation spread through the room. Camilla knew her staff had watched the notice arrive. The Queen Consort had spent years proving she belonged beside Charles, but one formal decision had pushed her back outside a circle of trust. She said nothing to her advisors. Her silence carried enough anger. William felt no victory. He admitted to Catherine that excluding Camilla could widen the family divide, but he could not preserve appearances by surrendering a boundary that should never have been tested. The prince knew why the decision mattered. Once palace offices gained influence over Diana's jewels, they could shape how her memory was presented and who inherited the right to protect it. Charles visited Camilla after the notice was delivered. She asked whether he intended to overturn it. The king answered that he could not interfere while the review remained active. Her face hardened. She removed a planned engagement from her diary and told him she was too humiliated to appear beside William. Charles tried to calm her, but she closed the diary before he could finish. Harrow's surrendered files made the crisis worse. The papers showed that Camilla's proposed role formed only one part of a larger restructuring plan. A centralized crown ceremonial office, one department controlling major royal display decisions, would eventually absorb several family-managed collections. Such power could weaken William's influence over Diana's jewels and over objects intended for Catherine, George, Charlotte, and Louis. William entered the trust archive as the custodian unlocked a cabinet containing sealed inventories. He found Catherine's name, Charlotte's future allocation, and Diana's original instructions recorded on separate pages. The prince paused longest over his daughter's entry. Catherine watched his anger settle into quiet resolve. She understood that this was no longer only about the past. It was about what their children would inherit, and whether Diana's memory would reach them unchanged. Catherine decided that officials could not solve the deadlock. William and Charles had to meet alone, not as heir and king, but as son and father. The palace had divided the files, restricted the offices, and silenced the advisors, but only one private conversation could decide whether the family itself would fracture with them. There were no officials in the room when William met Charles that evening. No trust documents, no royal diaries, no Camilla, Catherine, or legal language to shield either man from what had driven the conflict from the beginning. For the first time since the walkout, father and son spoke Diana's name without attaching it to policy. Charles expected anger. What he heard instead was grief, and the admission that William feared losing control of his mother's memory all over again. Catherine had persuaded William to go to Clarence House, the king's London residence and private working home, before resentment hardened into something permanent. She told him that winning the legal argument would mean little if the pain beneath it remained untouched. The prince listened, because she understood the burden he carried better than anyone. Charles prepared in silence. Before his son arrived, the king removed the handwritten note from his desk and placed it inside a drawer. He did not want evidence lying between them like a weapon. For once, the monarch knew procedure would only help them avoid the truth. William spoke first. He said the delayed jewel had taken him back to childhood, when decisions about Diana were made around him, while he was expected to remain quiet. The trust had become his promise that her memory would never again be controlled by people who believed silence was easier than honesty. Charles did not defend himself. He admitted that he had avoided setting a firm boundary because he feared humiliating Camilla. The king had spent years protecting his wife from rejection. Yet in doing so, he had asked his son to carry the emotional cost. He finally understood that protecting one person could not require reopening another person's deepest wound. Charles then spoke without hesitation. Camilla would hold no formal, advisory, consultative, or indirect authority over Diana's jewelry trust. William lowered his head and exhaled. The prince asked only one question: would the decision be placed in writing? The king opened a drawer and produced a drafted directive, an official written order that would confirm the trust's independence and William's protective role. Charles also revealed through the document that Harrow had been removed from every matter involving family-controlled collections. The decision was no longer an idea. It was ready to become law inside the household. Charles added one condition: Camilla had to be told privately before the directive was circulated. He would not allow the queen to discover the outcome through staff gossip or a notice placed on her desk. William agreed. He said humiliation could not become the purpose of the victory. His goal was protection, not revenge. Charles placed a pen beside the directive but waited. William read the final paragraph, added protection for Catherine and the children's future rights, then returned the page. The king signed. Father and son had finally drawn the boundary the palace avoided for too long. Yet beyond those walls, one image, the queen rising from the table and refusing to answer, was about to overwhelm every careful explanation. The story broke before sunrise. By breakfast, the private confrontation had become a national spectacle. Broadcasters replayed the same central detail. William asked about Diana's jewels, and Camilla walked out. To some, her departure looked like guilt. To others, it looked like a woman refusing to endure another accusation, built around the most painful triangle in royal history. But one front page reduced the entire crisis to 5 words, and changed how the public understood it. The palace moved quickly. Its communications office, the team responsible for official statements and public messaging, described the dispute as an internal review of collection governance. That phrase simply meant the rules controlling who could manage and approve decisions involving the jewels. Yet the language sounded cold beside the emotion of the walkout, and it failed to contain the story. Commentators divided almost immediately. William's supporters said he had defended his mother's wishes and protected a trust that existed to keep Diana's legacy beyond palace pressure. Camilla's defenders argued that her ceremonial role had been twisted into an accusation of theft. The Queen had asked for coordination, they said, not ownership. The London Herald gave the public a symbol. Its fictional morning edition carried a full-page image of Diana wearing the sapphire suite beneath the headline, "Her Jewels, His Line." A smaller image showed Camilla leaving a recent engagement alone. 5 words turned a private disagreement into a battle over inheritance, memory, and blood. William saw the front page inside Kensington Palace and felt immediate dread. The prince had wanted clarity, not public punishment. He feared that defending the trust had now been transformed into a campaign against Camilla. Catherine watched him fold the newspaper and understood that success had brought a new kind of suffering. Camilla faced the same storm alone. The queen consort watched an evening presenter declare, "This is not a dispute over diamonds. It is a dispute over who is permitted to interpret Diana's place in the monarchy." When the broadcast called her departure the walkout that answered the question, she switched off the television before the discussion ended. Charles could no longer wait. The king ordered his signed directive released earlier than planned. A directive is a formal written command carrying authority inside the royal household. It confirmed that Diana's trust would remain independent, and that no current consort would hold power over it. The public response deepened. A crowd gathered outside Kensington Palace, leaving white roses and handwritten notes, thanking William for protecting his mother's memory. One young woman tied a sapphire-colored ribbon against the gates. Catherine read one message quietly, then asked staff to remove anything attacking Camilla. She refused to let love for Diana become cruelty toward another woman. The public had chosen symbols, headlines, and sides, but the monarchy's final judgment would not be delivered outside the gates. It would come in one last room, between the two people whose confrontation had exposed everything. Camilla did not apologize for leaving the meeting, and William did not apologize for asking the question. Their final conversation offered no dramatic embrace and no easy rewriting of history. Instead, it produced something the royal family had avoided for decades: an honest boundary. Diana's jewels would remain protected by the trust established around her legacy. Camilla would hold no power over them, and William, having secured that promise, would no longer use the dispute to punish the woman his father chose. Charles arranged the final meeting, but chose not to attend. The king understood that his presence would turn him into a defender, interpreter, or judge. William and Camilla had to speak without him. The directive and official written order, confirming how authority would be exercised, had already settled the trust's future. Their conversation could change nothing on paper. It could only decide how the family would live with the result. Camilla spoke first. She told William she had walked out because his question made her feel that every duty she performed would forever be judged through Diana. The Queen admitted, however, that seeking formal consultation without approaching him first had been a serious mistake. She had allowed palace procedure to enter a place where personal history demanded honesty. William listened before answering. He said his question had never been designed to remove Camilla from the monarchy or deny her place beside Charles. The prince had acted because his mother's possessions could never become bargaining pieces inside the royal hierarchy. Diana's jewels carried memory, grief, and promises made to the next generation. Camilla took the original memorandum from the table. She drew a firm line through the request bearing her office's name, signed beneath it, and slid the page toward William. The Queen offered no dramatic apology. He demanded no public humiliation. The gesture was enough. William then confirmed that the trust would cooperate with her office on practical scheduling. After a jewel had been approved, Camilla would receive professional courtesy, but never authority over selection, interpretation, or inheritance. The consequences became permanent. Harrow was reassigned, and the trust's procedures were rewritten. No palace office could delay an approved loan without written consent from William, Catherine, or the independent trustees. Charles received the signed agreement later that evening. He placed it beside a private photograph of William and Harry with Diana, and accepted the truth he had avoided. Protecting Camilla could never require diminishing the woman who came before her. The walkout was not Camilla's defeat. It was the moment avoidance finally failed. Diana's jewels remained protected for her sons, Catherine, and the generations to come. The Queen kept her place, but not control over Diana's memory. William defended his mother without destroying his father's wife. The door Camilla closed in anger reopened on different terms. Diana's legacy was secure. William's duty was fulfilled, and the crown finally accepted that honoring the present could never require rewriting the past. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.